Welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Review podcast. It was a frustrating weekend, shall we say, at the Stadium of Light as Sunderland contrived to somehow lose 1-0 to Cardiff City despite really long periods of dominance and loss of possession. But as you can expect, Brad and Ross, sorry, not going to edit that, aren't here because we've lost. So it's just me and Dave this morning. Dave, first time we've spoken about a defeat in a while, but how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, I think we just spoke beforehand, didn't we? I'm going to go with a frustrating loss, but still plenty of positives in the performance. And I think when you look back at it, especially from Sunderland and the management and the coaches, I think to take a positive from a defeat, it's probably shown signs of progress. To be fair.
Yeah, I think so. It did have a very Sunderland feeling towards the game. I could tell from about 20 minutes from the end that Cardiff were going to score off someone's arse. And I haven't watched the goal back fully. I've watched the mistake back. And obviously I've seen it in live time and I'm pretty certain it did come off the lad's arse and just bundled in the bottom of the corner. But it felt very Sunderland in some ways. But what hasn't felt very Sunderland is the feeling of positivity, the fact that we've had 3 wins in a row, that we're kind of talking about all our players, that they're all really on form. And like I say, yesterday felt a little bit more typical old school Sunderland, and that's maybe where it's kind of hard. But it's a very easy game to sum up in the sense that it was never going to go in for us. We were never going to score all day for some reason. It just felt like that. And they were always going to get a late goal. But, I mean, how are you feeling this morning? We've had, not even 24 hours yet, but I feel like in the main, people feel relatively positive.
Yeah, I haven't got too much... I haven't got too much problem with it, really. We're not gonna win every game. We know that. We shouldn't be getting beaten in them situations. Especially from a set piece so late in the game. That's the frustrating aspect of it, isn't it? I think the things to take from it are, my dad is always right. He said that Cardiff have been our bogey team for years, and yeah, absolutely nailed that one. And then on top of that, chief executive, whoever at the club should realise that we need a new strip every week. It's plain as brass. You can see it. It's there. We haven't put a fourth strip out for the 4th game in a row, and that's what's fucked us, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I put my put the result down to, mate. I mean, I don't want to take too much away from Cardiff because I think there's been a lot of people saying, they were crap, they're one of the worst teams I've seen and stuff like that. But for me, what they came across as is a really bang average championship team. And I mean that in a complimentary way, if there's any Cardiff fans listening, which it probably isn't. But they came and done what a lot of teams did over the past year, realising that we're really good in transition and we're really good on the break and we're really good at getting forward. And if we have a chance of finding the space, one of our more creative midfielders or wingers is going to find it, even without a striker. And I thought it was stodgy. I talked about the preview show and I said, Cardiff was stodgy for ages. Have they got any better? And the lad in the preview show was yeah, they're a bit better, but they've been very stodgy for a while. What I've seen was a really stodgy team that will probably finish about 11th. They put men behind the ball, defended in all 11 behind the ball, the defended in numbers, put their body on the line. The goalkeeper did all right. Made a couple of decent saves. We probably missed a few golden opportunities to let him off. And then they waited for the chance in the last 20 when they had a bit of a go. I felt it was very how a lot of teams are going to perform and come up against us. But I think, and I'm not the first person to say this in the last 24 hours or since the game's ended, 9 times out of 10, even if a team does that and you play the way we did, you're going to win the game. It was just that 1 in 10 where you didn't. But look, losing games isn't great, especially when we're going for promotion. And I know there's been times at the start of the season when we went, oh God, we've lost the first 2. But I think over the past few weeks, we've seen we're a team more than capable of going for minimum of playoffs this year. I don't think, again, the league's got much in it. Southampton, obviously, aren't what we thought it would be. Ipswich are probably more than we thought it would be. But, same with Preston. But time will tell if they can sustain that because it's a squad game with the amount of games you have in this league. And I think Leicester are probably a standout. But outside of that, there's no reason why we can't have another good go. But look, losing games isn't great. But I felt like this defeat wasn't so much met with anger, more that frustration that I've mentioned and you've mentioned, and borderline acceptance that it was basically just one of those days. A win would have been great, but it actually wouldn't have changed our position that much. It would have had us in 4th rather than 5th. So feeling positive going into the next few games still. I think we can, put that one to bed, I think, and then move on going forward, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. It's the reality of the championship, isn't it? And probably the reality of football in general. Unless you're Manchester City, who I wonder how long it is before we get talk of winning 38 out of 38. But unless you're Man City, it's a level playing field for a lot of us. It was from what I saw of the game. We're in a good place. There's so many technically talented footballers that we have. I just said to you before, hadn't I? I think the glaringly obvious is we could do with a centre forward who's like no nonsense, just smashes the ball, doesn't necessarily try to place it in the corner. And I think we'll be in good stead. I think as you correctly pointed out, Royson's probably going to be that guy. He's going to take a bit to adapt. He's going to take a bit to get up to speed. But we do have so many good footballers, and I think the reaction. One thing I took from that yesterday, the reaction of the Cardiff bench, the Cardiff players, shows you that we're a scalp, and that gives me immense pride, to be honest. I know we've had one season in the Championship, but to bounce back and to kind of be where we're now at, where people are coming to the stadium are like, or we're going away from home, and actually giving us the respect that we have earned, really. We've earned that respect. And just one of those days, it happens. It happens to the best of us. And yeah, I can't wait for the next game to put it right, to be fair.
Yeah, same. I'm looking forward to games, and the defeat hasn't really dampened my enthusiasm on that. I think, we did kind of get used to teams putting 11 men behind the ball and defending in League One, but in League One it was a constant pressure just to get out of the division because we knew we were on paper the biggest side in that league at that point. I know a few Ipswich fans might disagree, but I don't really care. I think when we were in League One, we were either destined to succeed and not get a pat on the back because we should be getting out of the league or be laughed at. And that meant that almost every team came up and put 11 men behind the ball. And how many times did we see them nick it? I think it's a bit different in the Championship. We're a massive club in this league, but we're not like destined to get promoted at some point. Like you would hope we are, but when that will be, we don't know. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but it will be, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that a team's going to come up here in the Championship, want to attack us. But the fact that a lot of teams sit back, time waste, try to slow the game down and take the pace out of it it's probably a huge compliment to us. And it's probably got a lot to do with the fact that our home form's not quite been as good as our away form, because I think teams have to come at us when they're at home 9 times out of 10, because in the Championship, I don't think it matters who you're playing. I think 9 times out of 10, your home fans expect that you can win because anyone can beat anyone in this league, really. And it's whoever ends up being the most consistent at the end of the season that tends to go up, a la Burnley and whatnot last season, and Sheffield United. But I also thought Cardiff got it tactically really right. I think as much as it's frustrating that if we take one of our chances, their tactics change, they've got to come out and have a go at us, and then we probably, tear them apart and get another goal. But I think the fact that they managed to go 0-0 for so long did give them a chance, which is kind of also our fault, but also credit to their tactics, and we're going to come up against that more than once this season. But like I said before, I think 9 times out of 10 we get the goal, they have to come out, and then we get a second. But I do want to say with the positives, there's going to have to be some negatives in today's podcast. Obviously, we got beat. There's got to be some, but I want to stay with the positives. I've actually been, I wouldn't say a critic, but like I'm such a big fan of Dan Neil that I probably hold him to a higher standard than some players that we have. But I feel like yesterday Daniel was absolutely superb. I thought he was the best player on the pitch by an absolute country mile. I really don't think he deserved to be on the losing side. I think sometimes last year we saw a Daniel that was like that good for one game, and then he'd have a bit of an average game, and then a decent game, and then he'd have another great game. He was like have a really good game every 3 or 4 matches and be quite good the rest of the games. I feel like this season, quietly, he's probably been our best player. Maybe sans Dan Ballard, but how much has Daniel progressed this season? He's now played 120 games for Sunderland, and how important is he to us? Like, I mean, I was even talking to the lad next to me yesterday, and we said, like, if you'd said last year Liverpool were interested, we'd be like, what? And there was an element of me when it happened when I was like, huh? But I can understand why big teams will be sniffing around him. Hopefully they don't take him anytime soon. But back to the question, how important is he to us and how much has he progressed, Dave?
Yeah, definitely. I feel as though he's that guy who can. He's got a bit of everything in the locker. I feel. I look back to the obviously non-nominators famous goal at Reading last year, which I happened to be there. The initial burst, the initial ball in, then to continue his run, and that first time pass to Jack Clark, the vision that it takes to see that pass and then to actually execute it, I think it sums him up perfectly. He's got a bit of everything. He can play it 10 yards, he can play it 25, he can play it inside the fullback. I think he's a very intelligent footballer for his age. And I think he'll go on and do very well. I hope he continues with us. The great thing about local lads playing for their local club is the fact that I understand he who shall not be mentioned moved on, and it was the right thing for his career, wasn't it, to go to Liverpool at the time, and he went on and did very well before he made some strange decisions. And I feel the same for Dan Neil. We'll get that, especially playing in a good team, especially playing in a team that plays good football. I feel as though he will show a loyalty to a degree. And I don't think there's a single Sunderland fan, because he's a local lad, would ever begrudge him a Champions League move or anything like that. But for now, we just enjoy it. And I think you hit the nail on the head before. We said it about Job, didn't we? When his first game was very good. His second game was maybe a little bit quieter. Then he got the 2 goals. And it's hard not to jump on the hype train when they're so young and when they're learning the football and they haven't played. Look at Dan Neil, who'd played 20 games instead of 120. All of us, it's amazing how much experience gives you that extra bit. If you're a talented footballer, you're a talented footballer. But there's certain scenarios within the game that you won't have experienced before, because you're coming up against better players, fitter players, stronger players. And he's obviously working that out. He's finding his own style. I just think he's a massive positive for us, to be fair. But I think there's a lot like that. And I think effectively where you see Dan Neil now, you'll see like a Joe Bellingham in possibly 2 or 3 years.
I thought Job was good again yesterday, to be fair as well, but I know what you mean. I was actually surprised he took Job off. I thought he's having a good game. I thought we'll come to the negatives, look, and one that I will point out is that I thought the substitutions didn't really work. Was I asking for them? Yeah. I thought Ashish was good, or French Dave, as he's been called. I thought he played quite well. I thought Roberts probably tried to do too much. I still think, and look, I know the game against Southampton and the game against QPR, he got in a really good position. But I still think Himir looks like a player that's only played 4 senior league games, which is a bit of a shame. But one negative I want to come on to, and I hate doing this because I absolutely love him, and it really annoys me. But before anyone gets concerned, look, I'm not hammering him. He's 20, I think, and I rate him so highly. So highly. He's one of my favourite players. Man who loves to tackle, but the goal came from a pretty horrendous mistake from Trey Hume, which led to the corner. I think Trey's been excellent. I think he's arguably up there as one of the best right backs in the division. There's a reason he's getting picked for his country week in, week out. It's because of the form he showed. But there's been once or twice over the past 10 months where he's made like a glaring mistake that's cost us. If people want me to point those out, because I know that our memories are not that great, and mine, I had to dig back into my archives of last season. But Bristol City, he gave the penalty away last year. Didn't need to do that. Hull at home, he makes the error where the lad sort of turns when he should have just put it out. And a couple of the mistakes have been quite similar in that sense. Is that a worry, Dave, or is that just where we are as a club right now, in the sense that we have young, hungry footballers that have minimal fear, and rather than booting it out, they want to back themselves, they want to pass it back, try and get it pat, or restart, move of our own, play the game Tony Mowbray wants us to play? Is that just something that occasionally we're just going to have to get on with? Because I pointed out 3 mistakes there, Dave, but that's 3 mistakes from a kid playing his first steps in senior football at this level. and he's 20. So in one way, you could say, oh, that's 3 mistakes, that's cost us points. Or you could say, well, 3 mistakes from a 20-year-old in 10 months in his first real season in the Championship is hugely impressive. Is it a negative that he's keep making those mistakes, or do you think that's just what Sunderland are as a club at the minute? We need to accept it sometimes.
I think we're both of that age that our
21
dads, yeah, obviously, our dads influenced our ideals on football a lot. And when you think back to when we were kids, standing there in Roker Park on our little stool up against the railings and whatever, and John Kay. Now John Kay doesn't even try and attempt that, does he? It's literally in the North Sea. It's over the top and it's gone. And I think there's 2 points to make for it. One, and you might be able to find it out while you're there if you don't already know. Tri-Hume is a new footballer. You alluded to it, and he probably nowhere near Dan Neil, is he? He's probably nowhere near 100 appearances. So you've got that, his inexperience, and also the way that we play football, and for a certain age demographic, the way that we play football is not percentage. It just shows how good we are, and of course that's what brings on them mistakes. Now, does Tony Mowbray kind of knock that out of him and say, right, just shift it? I don't think he does. I think he probably tries to say to him, can we recognise a little bit more? You've made the mistake. You're going to make mistakes. There's much better footballers in the world who make mistakes every day, and maybe don't get punished for it. So a little bit of unluckiness as well. But that's how we play football. He is inexperienced, and it's frustrating. And I think that's just the word to come from it again, isn't it? The defeat's frustrating, the mistake's frustrating. The old school side of me goes, for God's sake, you've cost us 3 points. The way that we now play football, I'm kind of like, okay, I understand it. I don't want you to do it again, but I understand why you've made the mistake, and we just move on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And look, there's been a few times, and I think it'd only take you probably about 4 episodes to delve back into my thoughts on having a bit more experience and stuff like that and whatnot. But it's not like I'm now disagreeing with myself. I'm not Martin O'Neill, who occasionally does it. But I think it's just a case of acceptance that this is what Sunderland are. In the main, it's worked very, very well. I'm very, very happy. And 9 times out of 10, I've been very, very displeased with Sunderland during my lifetime. Sans maybe 3 seasons. And I'm really, really happy with where Sunderland are right now. And if that's something I need to accept, that these young kids are going to be 9 times out of 10 excellent, fearless, make me really proud to be a Sunderland fan and proud of the team that we have. And 1 times out of 10, they're going to make a mistake where you think, oh, you stupid idiot. And it's going to kind of ruin your Sunday a bit and make me drive back home to Glasgow a bit grim. I think I'm okay with that because I'm a Sunderland fan. I'm not a City fan. I'm not a United fan. Success is, I can measure success a little bit differently to just winning every single game. And I think the success is that we've got a good young team, fearless, that have a few errors in them, a few mistakes like young kids will. But we've just talked about Dan Neil before. And I think Dan Neil used to lose the ball on the edge of his own area about 5 times a season in his first couple of seasons. Now I feel confident in him. He's ironed those mistakes out because he's got 120 games under his belt. And I'm certain that Trey will do the same. And I think Trey's got so much more positives than negatives. Yesterday, he was pretty honking, fairly horrific, misplaced about 4 passes, made the mistake. But it's one in about 5-6 games. And I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm fine with it. But let's stay with the negatives. For now. One of the potential negative is that, and there's a caveat to this, don't worry, there's positive coming in for those who think we've been a bit negative the past few weeks. It was a home defeat that felt a little bit similar in some ways to games last year, and I mean that in terms of the way that they've set up. Not so much there's not many games that are going to be like that, but the way Cardiff set up, we've seen a few teams set up like that last year and get points. I think Watford were one of the teams. Obviously, you've got Watford coming up in a few weeks where they kind of sat back a bit and then hit us with, I think it was 2 corners, if I remember correctly. But it's not a secret that a lot of teams do like to come here and, for want of a sort of football cliche, park the bus and Hope we get something off a corner. Ipswich are a really good team. I felt Ipswich sat back quite a bit on the opening day of the season for large periods, hit us when they could hit us, and they've probably got a bit more quality up front with the likes of Nathan Broadhead than Cardiff do, so the damage just a bit more. These games aren't going to change. Teams have seen that it does work. Cardiff have took 2-1-0 wins, playing a similar way. Watford got a draw up here and we had to score in the 97th minute. I'm sure there's other bits of evidence, like Preston last year, Blackpool last year did similar, and we couldn't quite get it over the line. And there's been games where we got nicked 1 out and stuff like that. And it probably put pay to our sort of, should we say, bad home form that we had last season, or not as good as it was away anyway. How does Tony Mowbray remedy that? Because we can't have too many of them. As much as I've just said what I've just said about the young players and making mistakes, we probably do have to find another way to break these teams down, because I don't think people are going to change how they come up against us, because there's a lot of evidence that it does work at home.
Yeah, and I think that probably comes from a word that you've already used, and it's a couple of experienced heads. I think you want a more experienced centre forward who's maybe in and around the dressing room, might not play as much, however, it's just a bit more of a battering ram, not quite as pretty. Can we just have a 20-minute spell of being direct? Now, do I think that Tony Mowbray is going to go for that? Do I think the recruitment are going to go for that? Possibly not, but that's what I feel. And then also, obviously, the Corey Evans aspect. For as much as Dan Neil's doing really well, just recognising bits within the game, because they've played 400, 350 career games, recognising that we need to do something a little bit different. I suppose the one we've got within the squad, although we probably nearly lost him, is Alex Pritchard. However, Pritchard is that guy who, he's a very pretty footballer. He wants to make that reverse pass. He wants to thread it through the eye of a needle, and maybe he doesn't like to go as direct as we could in order just to break it down. Like I say, I'm not saying we go route one for the whole game, but just a little 20-minute spell just to give the opposition something different to think about. It's almost plan C instead of plan A or plan B. So yeah, I think that's where we're lacking, potentially. But maybe it just takes them all playing together a little bit more. I still don't think Mowbray knows his best 11, which is absolutely mad to think, really. We know his feelings on Patrick Roberts, and you said it yesterday, and yeah, Patrick Roberts came on and almost probably tried to impress too much. And that's because he hasn't been in the team, isn't it? He's been injured. He's took that knock. Mowbray knows how good he is, knows how technically gifted he is. But also the one thing, Cardiff are going to do is, whether it's commit a foul or whether it's be in your face, that's their game plan. They're going to be fit. They're going to be strong. They're not going to give you the 3 yards of space that Roberts wants. They're just going to give her a yard and then jump on top of you. So, yeah, I think simple answer. I'd take a more experienced centre forward, and I'd take a bit of a wily old fox in the middle of the park as well, if I'm honest. Corey Evans, get him back.
Yeah, I can't disagree, really. I think in the main we'll cope without both of those, but for little games like this, which do make the difference between maybe promotion and not, and look, I think that's our ambition. Like, I know at the start we were like, oh God, we've lost our first 2 games, have we been too ambitious? But I think we've seen over the past few weeks we're more than capable of it. But hopefully, Pierre, who actually prefer a little bit further up the pitch, can cover that role till Corey's back. And even if Corey plays a bit part role from January onwards when he's hopefully fit, I think games like that, when you just want someone to sort of sit and break a little bit so we can continuously pile the pressure onto teams with a can of break on us, the worst we're going to get is a draw, because teams are not going to get the corner, because they're not going to get a break on us. We're not going to be able to make the mistake Trey Hugh made yesterday, because Corey's going to break those those attacks up and make sure it gets to our, important players. I think we do miss a little bit of that in games like that. Corey Evans, I agree, and I do. One question I will. Burstow's played up front the past 3 games. I'm not going to judge him. I've got my thoughts, yeah, but I don't want to judge him just yet because I don't think it's fair. But I think Hamir and Burstow in some ways are much of a muchness in terms of experience at the very least. Rusin's a bit older. I know the Ukrainian Premier League. Well, I don't know the Ukrainian Premier League, actually. I don't know anything about it. But I'm assuming it's not of the worst standard on the planet. He scored plenty of goals. He's cost us, I think it was 2.5, it was rumoured. He's very different in size, and he looks almost more like someone who cut in off the left. But Chef Wed look really poor. And don't get me wrong, it's not going to be an easy game. There isn't such a thing. We could quite easily go and beat Middlesbrough 5-0 and get beat 4-1 off Chef Wed. It's that kind of division. It always has been. But do you maybe look at starting Rusin up top? Because I'm not going to share my thoughts on Burstow, but I'd like to see maybe someone a bit different.
Yeah, I think so. I think I will share my thoughts on Burstow. Just the fact that I don't think he's ready for it. I understand why he's here. I understand why Chelsea would let him. In fact, I understand why Chelsea let anyone go because, let's be honest, they've got that many players on their books. They just loan players out just for a holiday, I think. So yeah, that's a different story for a different day.
Just to get a bit of space in the showers. Get a bit of space in the showers. Like, oh, sorry, Mason, lad. Unfortunately, we've got a young Ukrainian lad with a pair of curtains that we've paid £80 million for and given a 17-year contract. So your shower space is used this week. You're going to have to get yourself over to Sunderland. All right, no worries.
And if you can leave your shower gel for him, that'd be great because it was in his contract. No, he's just not quite ready. It's very similar to the Gelhardt situation. He's probably a last 20 minutes or a slightly different player to what we need at the minute. Obviously, injuries are counteracting what we want to do, what I would imagine we want to do. And I think the new lads need some minutes. I'm sure they're putting as much work in as they can behind the scenes and possibly even behind closed doors games and whatever. But let's see, especially as we got so many players who hit the byline and then have that little reverse pass back, don't we? And I think Burstow maybe wants the ball in behind a little bit more and kind of running onto or crosses into the box as well, instead of that clever little technical player, which we know we're very good at. So I'd like to see Royce in, and I think the biggest optimism that I can give to Sunderland fans regarding it, Sunderland will not spend £2.5 million on a footballer without it being researched to the absolute maximum. So I've got quite high hopes for him. I've probably put the jinx on him for a start, and there's people out there who will go back to the preview show and say, Dave, you said Hamir would get 15 to 20 goals this season. The caveat to that is I did say if we played in the right style for him, and we aren't playing to his strengths at the minute. And I think what they're going to effectively do with someone like Hamir is say, right, this is what you were very good at. That's brilliant. English football doesn't kind of play that way. So therefore, you need to learn how we play. And I think eventually he will have a few goals in him. But yeah, I think, as you said before, he's just not quite ready for it either, is he?
I think the caveat to that is none of us know what we're talking about. We just pretend we do, and somehow we get a podcast out of it. Quick turnaround, Dave. Sheffield Friday, Watford midweek, I think, and then Middlesbrough. All 3 teams have struggled in ways. It's definitely Sheffield Wednesday, and obviously Borough got a win against Southampton at the weekend, but it appears we have broken Southampton. All 3 teams are probably going to have a go at us. Sheffield need a win. They can't sit back and hope for a draw because that'll do nothing for them and the confidence. Watford might be a bit different. Watford might sit in like they did a bit last season, but I think they'll want to make sure they're showing the not mid-table for it because they were Premier League 2 years ago. And Borough are not going to approach a game and sit back against us. I don't think they'll go gung ho, but I don't think they're gonna sit back. They're gonna want to win. Is that going to benefit us? That each team potentially would come at us a lot more than say like a Cardiff did yesterday?
Yeah, it certainly should. It'll open up the spaces in between the lines, and that's in an attacking sense. That's where we are very good. And I think fans of said clubs where they'll be a little bit tetchy. Borough, slightly different story depending on their next result, but it'll. Yeah. I'm not unconfident. I'm going into games. I'm even looking at the likes of Leicester, who we probably think are going to do a bit of a Burnley and run away with it to a degree. I'm looking forward to the challenge more than I am thinking, oh damn, we're going to get tonked 6-0. I think it'll be a good marker of where we're at, and it's all to play for. And I'm sure the management are saying the same. Listen, it's up to you. If you want to go and put a run together, if you want to go 10 games unbeaten and win 7 of them, then it's there to go and have a go at. I think that second spot is massively up for grabs now that we've seen a little bit of what the league's about and what everyone's about, and I think we're right in the mix personally.
I really hope Tony Mowbray's going to address me with your accent going, listen, because that would just be like Tony Mowbray believes in the Falk brand as well, or the Dave Lawrence brand, if you prefer. So I think to sum up, look, you can hear we're quite jovial, we're happy, we're all right. Like, it's fine, and that's a really weird place to be with Sunderland after defeat. I think, like many fan bases, we're not special in the sense that normally when we get beat, the world's ended, and when we win, we're going to win the Champions League. That's kind of just the way football sometimes is, but I think it shows where Sunderland are, that we're all right with the defeat. Not all right. We can see why it happened, and we can see where we can put it right. But sum up your feelings, Dave. Is everything okay? We move on? Are you raging? And do you want to fight people who think you have bad opinions on ready to go?
Never. I'm too much of a lover. I think it's a good way to sum it up, isn't it? Sometimes, whether we're footballers, whether we're humans, very philosophical answer, we're not always right. We like to think we are.
I like how you differentiated between humans and footballers, like the two separate things. Humans, robots, footballers, AI, which one is going to take over the world?
Yeah, did the Killers not have a song? Are we human or are we footballers? No, it was a different
Something like that.
But yeah, we go again Friday night. I get the feeling it'll be a positive result. That's not because I think Chef went a shite. Dave Lawrence's opinion, I do think they're shite. But yeah, really looking forward to it. Get it put right. Get back on the victory trail and get an unbeaten run put together and get us back in the Premier League.
Got to be aware of Barry, League One, now Championship's best player that ever existed, Bannon. Was listening Andy Hinchcliffe quite a while ago, don't worry. But Dave, thanks for joining us. Really positive feeling. I hope everyone feels similar. Frustrating, but get back on the horse, take on the world-class Barry Bannon, and hopefully we'll prevail in the world of Barry Bannons in Sheffield on Friday. And if we don't, then this podcast is going to be replayed across the blue side of Sheffield for endless years and months, but I'll always have that Patrick Roberts goal, so I don't care. Thanks, Dave.
Cheers, mate.